What's up, everybody? It's Trey Smith, co-owner of Recaptured Values, alongside my talented wife,
Bailey Smith.
And hey, guys, we've been working for you guys. I've been kind of behind the scenes, which is why you haven't been seeing me. But trust me, I've been working for you guys.
We're the magic.
I'm the magic man. I've been doing all the social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. You know what I mean? I've been working for you guys. But yes, a lot of big things are coming, and we are happy that you are watching these videos. We hope these videos help you guys. And
we're going to be putting out new videos every Tuesday, and we're going to call it Teach It Tuesday. So Be prepared to learn. Yeah. So whether you're a mama, a grandma, and any sort of family member making stuff for your little nieces and nephews, whatever. Right. Shop owners, we welcome you to watch our videos and learn. We're just going to be going through our favorite patterns and showing you how we use them in our own shop, and we hope you can benefit from them.
Well, enough of the introduction. We hope you enjoy this video. See y'all on the other side.
Hey everybody, it's Bailey Smith from Recaptured Values, and today is Teach It Tuesday. Oh yeah. Alright, so today we're going to be going over one of our favorite, most versatile patterns, I think. It's good for girls and boys. It's super cute because it has tank option, short sleeves, long sleeves. It's just an all-around good pattern. And there's no snaps, no zippers, buttons, none of that. It's stretchy. You just step into it. It's awesome. And that is the Brindille Twig Harem Coverall Romper. And so to get started, I'm going to turn the camera down and I'll show you guys what I've already done. I've already cut out the pattern pieces, but I'm trying to explain to you guys how to cut it out because I feel like a lot of people go wrong, or you could actually really end up making something really cute but it not fit, and I'm going to try to explain that to you in just a second. So the link to this pattern will be below. We always link our patterns that we're using, or the pattern that we're using. It's not our pattern. This is a company, a pattern designer company. And we always just share the patterns that we use within our shop. And so this pattern will be linked below. It should be, I think, on the right-hand side of your screen in the description. There's like a down-facing arrowhead. Click that and it'll drop down and it'll give you a whole bunch of good information, including where we got this beautiful fabric from. And you can snag it because it's still available. So it's available right now, and it's Cinco de Mayo. So there we go. Okay, so we've got this. This is the pattern pieces. When you download the pattern, when you purchase the pattern on the link down below, when you download it, you'll get a PDF pattern to print out. And the best part about Brindille Twig is majority of their patterns have the layers feature, which is on the Adobe PDF. You can click on the left-hand side of the screen. There'll be like an arrow that pops out, and you can go to the layers and you can click the size that you want to print out, and it will take all the lines away from the other sizes and just show you the specific size lines that you need to print out, which is pretty awesome. So we are going to be doing the short sleeve version of this pattern. So like I said, the pattern does include an armband. If you want to do a tank version, it includes, and they all have the actual, this is the armband, but we're not going to use it because that would be the tank version. But this is, they include all the pattern pieces. I don't believe they have a cut chart, so you don't have to worry about, not having an armband or finding it. But so there's the neckband, the sleeve, they have a long sleeve or a short sleeve, and the cuffs, which this pattern you would cut. There's a longer option. There's 2 lines per size, and it's the hemmed version or a cuff version. I prefer cuffs because I really don't like hemming, and it's just easier to just add a cuff to it. That's pretty much any garment. If there's not a cuff option, you can make a cuff and add it on there. If you're like me and despise hemming, I despise hemming. Okay. Moving on. Here's the pattern pieces that you will need. This is the 18 to 24 month size, and there is a front and a back, and the difference between, or this is the front, sorry. There's a front and a back. The only difference is the actual neck. It's higher in the back and lower in the front. That's pretty much the only thing. If you wanted to make it like the same and you didn't want to have like two pattern pieces and you just wanted to cut, 2 of the fronts, you just need to make sure you add length to the neckline because it is longer in the front. But we're just going to do the pattern as is today because it's super cute, like the way it's called. So you would cut, these are on a fold, pretty much every pattern piece on here except for the neckband and the cuff are cut on a fold. So these pieces, you would lay your fabric out, you would fold it over, making sure the stretch is going across the garment, which means this way. This is the fold line here, I believe. Nope, this is the fold line. Fold line. So the stretch is going this way. Their pattern pieces tell you the grain line, and you know that the stretch is opposite to the grain line. So if they have an arrow going this way, showing you that it's the grain line, then that means that this way needs to be the stretch. So in this, they also tell you what you need to do. So you're going to cut on the fold. They also tell you that you need to cut at the higher line if you're adding cuffs, which we already did. You only cut at the lower line if you want to hem it. So it also tells you your seam allowance in the pattern piece, which is a fourth seam allowance, a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you need a front on the fold and a back on the fold. So like I said, which would mean you would cut your fabric. I've already done mine. But you would cut your fabric. As you can see, I've already got it folded here because I literally just cut it out. This I think is a back or a front. I don't know. This could be the back. I think this is a back. Okay, so this is a back right here, the back piece. And so this is the fold line, and it says on here, fold line. It's pretty small, so just pay attention to your pattern pieces and the instructions. You'll put it down like this. And you cut on the folds. That means you'll fold the fabric over and you don't cut this line. That's your folded piece of fabric. You'll just cut the curve, the arm shoulder, the arm sky, down here, the cuff line, and then this part. So that when you open it up, it is one full piece of fabric. So you do the same thing with the back. And then we'll move those out of the way. So we have our front and our back. I'm gonna put them over here. All right. But the cuff piece, like I said, it's not cut on a fold. So what you do is, I like to fold my fabric over so that when I cut this piece, I'll cut 2 pieces out. Pretty much what that means is, you'll do this, you'll leave a little bit of space, like if you fold your fabric over. So like imagine this is my fabric and it's folded over. I'm gonna push this up a little bit so that I can cut all the way around this piece. And you're cutting 2 mirrored images that way, 2 mirrored pieces that way. So that's how I do it. And then like I do all my cuffs that I add to anything, I like to go ahead and get them prepped to be sewn or serged. So the right sides are up. This is the long way. I'm gonna go ahead and fold it this way. Fold it this way. And then I'm gonna fold it this way and this way. Just matching up all my raw edges. And again, you want your stretch to go with the longest part. So like your piece says grain line, so that means this is the stretch, because the stretch is opposite to the grain line. So you want your stretch to go the longest part, because that's the part that you're actually going to be stretching your foot to go into the ankle part, or stretching your ankle hole. What would you call that? I don't know. But yeah, you get the gist of it. So there's our cuffs, and what you would do then is, that's the folded edge that we did, the first folded edge, or the second. That's the first folded edge, yeah. So this is our second folded edge here. And so you're gonna serge that where all your raw edges are. You're gonna serge that, or zigzag stitch that, whichever one. Or like someone pointed out the other day in our group, so if you haven't checked us out, it's really cool. We have membership options available. You can hit the join button. I think it's right beside the subscribe button if you're not a member. We have a paid membership, which gets you access to a wonderful group of lovely ladies and myself and my husband who share tips and tricks in there and answer questions and whatnot. And we have 4 different packages, and then the perks go up and up from there. So check those out. If you want to join our group. But somebody in the group mentioned the other day, they were like, could I use an overcast stitch or an overlock stitch if your sewing machine has it? On my sewing machine, it's a number 14, I think, and I have a Singer 725, Singer Stylist 7258, and that's absolutely great. If your sewing machine has that, wonderful, use that. It's basically a zigzag in the middle and straight stitches on the sides. It looks wonderful. If you have that, if your machine has that, that's a wonderful option to use. But if you do not, if you have a really basic model, zigzag stitch is perfectly fine. It'll get the job done. So that's where you would serge that. We'll sit those over here for just a minute. And so our neckband, here it is. This is the big neckband piece. And if you've watched any of our other videos, and if you haven't, check those out. Okay, but if you haven't watched any of our videos, what I like to do with my armband is go ahead and fold it in half. Just because I like to cut, it gives me less surface space to, you know, cut a straight line. And I feel like the longer this is, the more area I have to like get off cut, you know. So what I like to do is fold it in half, fold my fabric in half, and then I cut on the fold. Just like we cut the other pieces. I cut on the folds, then when you open it up, that's how it is. And so you want the stretch to go across the neckband because you're wanting to stretch into it. This one's really important that you have good stretch, good recovery fabric, because if you don't, the neck hole is going to get really stretched out and be really kind of weird. The pattern calls for elastic in the neckband. If your fabric doesn't have good recovery, you can add elastic in the neckband. I typically don't add elastic because I use double brushed poly fabric, and that's where this beautiful mauve tie-dye fabric, it's what it is, and it's from Knit Pop. We will link it down below. Definitely go check them out. They are super quick and awesome, wonderful people. But here's the sleeves, and so you cut 2 of those. Those are also cut on the fold, and you want the stretch to go across the garment. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And then I think that's it. That's all the pieces you have. So we have cuffs, sleeves, neckband, and the bodice or body of the garment. I don't know the specifics. Okay, so let's get it prepared. Same thing with the neckband that we did with the cuffs. It's just a little bit different size. So I've already folded, this is right side up. I'm gonna fold it right sides together this way. I guess that would be hamburger style. And then I'm gonna fold it hot dog style right here. This is how I do all my neckbands. And then the part, this is the fold edge here. And so that's the part that I've just folded again this way. So I fold it in half, and then I fold it in half. And so this part here, I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna serge. If you have a serger, if you don't, sewing machine will do it. Like I said, zigzag stitch is perfectly fine. We typically use a 3.5 by 2 width, or length and width, or width and length, sorry, 3.5 width, 2 length zigzag stitch on construction of garments. That's typically what we do. And for hemming, we do 5 and 2, I think. But so here is how that looks. And another thing that people were saying in the group is that sometimes when you do it like this method, because I think most of the patterns call for you fold it like this, and then you do the flat, and then you fold it, you know, once you get it done, and it's like that. I find this to be a lot less bulky seam, but in order to make sure that this part doesn't shift, because when you fold it open, one part's going to be probably a little bit taller than the other. I don't really have an example to show you, but when you start with this folded edge under your machine, and keep it as steady as possible, so that it doesn't look as visible. It'll always be a little bit just because there's a fabric on top of this one. But you know, the tighter you hold it, and if you start on this side, it's not going to be as big of a difference of uneven seam there. So that's what I do there. Same thing with the cuffs. It'll be the same way. So we're going to prepare everything. Pretty much everything can be done on the serger, except for the hemming of the sleeves. If you like a raw sleeve, that's fine. I personally do not. So I'm gonna hem the sleeves. And so their pattern is pretty awesome because the pattern piece, you cut it here. And so that's gonna be your fold up piece to do the hem. So you know when you have this little point sticking out here, that's what you're gonna fold back, and you're gonna fold it back. So this is the wrong side of the fabric, right? It's a little harder to tell too. That was another question somebody asked. How do you tell the right side and the wrong side of a fabric like this? The way I tell is on the fabric, if you look at it really closely, one side looks like squares and one side looks like little V's running together. And I can also tell because the back side is typically a little bit more pigmented than the front typically, or the right side. The back is a little bit more pigmented in color than the front. And I just like I said, the triangles on the front is the best way to do it. So I'm gonna put it wrong side up. And I'm gonna fold this part back. That's the best part about double brush poly, is it kind of sticks to itself when you squish it down. Most double brush polys, not all do this, but I just do this, and then you're gonna zigzag stitch here on your sewing machine. Like I said, if you don't have a sewing machine, you could use a serger and just serge that edge if you wanted to, but it's gonna look a little bit better. My opinion, it's just my opinion. I like to hem the sleeves when I'm doing them, but like I said, this, if you don't have a serger or if you don't have a sewing machine and all you have is a serger, you can cut the hem part off, so that part off, and then you could just add a band to that if you don't have a serger, or sorry, if you don't have a sewing machine and you can't hem your sleeves and you don't like the raw edge look, you can absolutely cut this part off, like just a straight cut the hem part off, and then make a band. And our bands are typically 1.5 inches wide, which makes them maybe 75 or 3/4 of an inch wide band. That's after seam allowance. I don't know math. But yeah, you can add a band to it. It's 80% of the opening, 80 to 85% depending on your fabrics. But yeah, so that's how that goes. And so we're gonna use the sewing machine, like I said, but like you can absolutely add a band to the sleeves if you needed to. And if you add a band, that means you could do it on your serger if you don't have a sewing machine. But I fold those down and then I zigzag stitch. You're gonna have to back stitch, and back stitch, you know, when you start. And I hem it right here. And so I'm gonna go over to the sewing machine and do that real fast. Like I said, I'm just gonna use zigzag stitch, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I have zigzag stitched, top stitch pretty much. I folded under, and did a top stitch. So that's the right side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold them right side together. So that's the inside of the sleeve. And then I am going to serge here, or you can do a zigzag stitch on both sleeves. So we got those prepared. We know we're going to zigzag that or serge the neckband. These right here are the cuffs. We know we're going to serge or zigzag stitch that. So we got those prepared. So the last thing we need to get prepared before we just head on over to the serger and finish this is get the actual garment ready to go. So this, I believe, is the back. And this, I believe, is the front. Yeah, okay, so you're gonna put them right sides together. Let me make sure this is right. Yeah, right sides together. Matching up your shoulders and your side seams here. We'll worry about the bottom when we get over here. But so pretty much what you're gonna do, as you can see, like I said, you can't really see it that well, but the front, which is on top right now, is lower than the back. And then you'll match up your side seams, which they're not really matched up right now. I like to match them up. You can pin them if you want, but if you're using a serger, make sure you remove your pins as you're serging, because you can mess up your machine. So pretty much what you do is you'll serge all the edges except for the armholes and the neck hole and the leg hole here. So you'll do the sides, the crotch part here, this crotch curve, and the shoulders. You will sew or serge or zigzag stitch, or like I said, overcast stitch. So we're gonna go over to the sewing machine or to the serger, whichever one you have, and get started. All right, so we're gonna start with the construction of the actual garment. Like I said, we have these right sides together, so this is the part that you're actually seeing is the wrong side. And we're gonna start with the shoulder seams here. We're sewing the shoulder seams together. And remember, it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm just gonna go ahead and start it. Like I said, if you don't have a serger or an overlocker machine, I have the 1034D Brother serger. I believe it's still available on their actual website, the Brother website, but it's sold out pretty much everywhere else. I don't know if that's because the mask thing that's going on, or you know, maybe it's just recapture values. Who knows? Who knows? But all right, moving on. This is our serger. I just recently changed my settings to yellow knob is 3.5, 3.5, 4.5, 4.5. Changed my settings to that. I really like it. I also changed the back here. I changed this to this point here. And then I changed this one to 3. I don't know if I've ever changed that one. I think that one stayed 3. And this one I put right in the middle of 5 and 6. It's just what I like to do. I changed them from my other videos, so you may check this out and see if it works better for you. All machines are, it's weird, but all machines are different, so just, you know, play with your machine, take a piece of scrap fabric. This is what I did the other day, and you know, figure out what you like setting wise, because like I said, not all settings work for everybody. So 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we're gonna get started. I'm not gonna cut that tail yet. Then get your other one. And then I'm just gonna cut it here. All right, and then we're gonna do the long side seam here. The right sides together. 1/4 inch seam allowance. Cut them too short. I leave a little bit of there. Okay, so then we're gonna go ahead and do the curve here. Make sure your ankles are matching up. And just start in the curve. And you just kind of curve the fabric around. That some people have a little trouble with the serger and the curves. It's really not that hard, especially this kind of curve. So you start. You can also, instead of like, you know, making your fabric go around, you can pull your fabric straight if you want to. I find that leaves the seam a little wavy, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it around the curve. The next one is the last side seam here. Okay. I'm gonna do this, start here. Make sure everything's lined up. Go here with the ankle. Make sure it's all lined up. Alright, so there's one last tail here. So then you get this piece done. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is 1/4 the neck like I always do. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna match up, it's still inside out. I'm gonna match up my shoulder seams here with the neckband. Or the the neck hole. And so I'm gonna snip here, boom, boom, here, and here. And actually on the pattern piece, this would be the front and this would be the back. But on the pattern piece, it actually tells you to do a snip when you cut the pattern piece. You can do that. I like to go ahead and do it after I sew, just because you never know, like what kind of, you could have messed up and something shifted it a little bit and it might not be the front and the back anymore. So just You can snip it in the beginning or you can snip it now, whichever works for you. This is just the way I do it. I'm just trying to help. So then you're going to match up those points that you just snipped. So the front and the back, we're going to match those up. And then you are going to pull this over here and you're going to realize that the shoulder seam is not going to be your point. It's going to be a little bit further in the front of the neckband. As you can see there, it's just a tiny bit further. So you're going to snip there. And you're going to do the same thing over here. You could absolutely use the shoulder band if you wanted to, but you can see that it's a little bit, or the shoulder seam, it's a little bit further forward than that. So you might have a little crazy neckband if you didn't, if you use the shoulder seam as a point. So we're going to flip this thing right side out. Put my hands in the leg holes here and flip it right side out. All right, so there is the, Lord, my arm's in the way. All right, so there is the outside of the romper. So we've snipped the neckband, and so let's go ahead, or snip the, we've snipped the neck hole. So now we need to do the neckband. And like I said, what you'll do is you will either serge or zigzag stitch. And all the stitching that we just did can absolutely be done on a sewing machine. If you have an overlock or overcast stitch, it kind of mimics the inside of a serger stitch, or the serger stitch, kind of. You can absolutely use that. Just remember the quarter seam allowance. Same thing here. You can use a zigzag stitch or an overcast stitch if you have that on your sewing machine. If you have a serger, that's what I like to use. It just works better with knits. Once you get your settings down, it's super easy to do. But so we're going to do this here. Like I said earlier, to avoid the unevenness of this seam here, we're going to start on the folded edge. As you can see, this is the bottom part. These are our raw edges. So we're going to put the folded edge part into the sewing machine. And I'm going to hold on to it with this finger right here. Move it so you can see. Put my finger right here. Put it underneath the knife, or the what is wrong with me today? Put this down, put this on here, under here, and I'm gonna go ahead and serge. And so I'm gonna put my finger here to keep this from shifting and making that seam super uneven. So I'm gonna go ahead and start. All right, and I'm gonna snip it, and I'm gonna snip it, and let's see if it was uneven. All right, this is what I mean by that. Whoop, whoop, whoop. It's a little uneven, as you can kind of see. So it's just really important to, make sure that you're gonna keep it tight. But if you do it the other way, it's not focusing. Focus. Focus on me. Focus. Come on. Whatever, but you guys see what I'm talking about. This little piece right here is going to get cut off with the serger, so don't worry about that. But this piece right here, don't worry about it. This is just the method that I use, and I mean, nobody's really going to have a big fuss about that. It may be more noticeable if you do a thicker fabric. That might be more noticeable, but with double brush poly, that's not really that big of a deal. So with your neckband, you're going to have to quarter your neckband now to match up the points to the neck hole that we got. So I'm going to go ahead and snip. So I folded it right side out. I'm going to fold at the seam here. And gonna snip right here. Boop. And I'm gonna match that little snip up with the back seam here. Boop, boop. You guys might be able to hear my child and husband outside playing. It's a wonderful day outside. But yeah, so, and my dog, he's out there playing too. Okay, so we're gonna match up. So I've matched up the front here, and I'm gonna snip this side here, boop, just a little bit, not too far, because it will show, if you don't catch it all in your seam when you serge. So this is the other side. I'm just quartering the neckband, making 4 equal points to match up with the 4 equal points that we did on the neck hole. So this time you're gonna need pins. 4 pins for 4 points. So, let me grab, what in the world? Thread was trying to attack me. All right, moving on. So we got the 4 points we need to match up. So we're gonna grab our neckband, and I like to put my seam in the back. Just what I do. The seam of the neckband in the back. You can choose wherever you want to put your neckband. I'm going to choose the back. That's just what I do. So pin that point. And then grab another pin. And match up the shoulder. Which, remember, it's a little bit in front of the shoulder seam. All right. Do the same thing here. And this is the outside of the garment. So I folded the garment right side out, and I'm putting the neckband on the outside. I think some, or possibly most patterns do this the opposite way, with the garment inside out and the neckband on the inside. Whichever way you do it, it'll get you the same result. So, this is just what I do. Last shoulder point right here. Anybody else sing random songs when they're sewing? Nope, just me? Okay. Moving on. So, here we go. So that's the neckband that is attached to the outside. That's the back, as you can see our little seam there. So we're gonna get started. I like to start on the side here, the shoulder seam. So I'm gonna put this under here. You're just gonna make sure that your actual neck hole is lined up, raw edges together with your neckband, with your 2 raw edges of your neckband, because it's folded. So pull it here, and then I just like to put it underneath the knife here, and you're gonna obviously remove your pin, or you're gonna have metal flying everywhere. You need to wear goggles, okay? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. I like to go ahead and start the serge seam just to make sure it's still 1/4 inch as well. I like to go ahead and start it so that when I come over here to my point, because I like to do point by point, I will pull this point, and your neckband will naturally be a tad bit smaller than your opening. Don't freak out. That's the #1 question that we're asked, is why is my neckband or why is my cuff smaller? It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a little bit smaller, especially for this garment, because you're going to be stepping into the neck hole to put it on. So that's a lot of stretching of this area of this garment. So you're going to have to, it needs to be a little bit smaller in order to do that, or it's going to get overstretched quick. So we're going to make sure that this neck hole is lined up with our neckband. So what I like to do is I like to just go ahead and pull the neckband, just the neckband, to where it's tight enough and lays flat with the opening. All right, so literally I'm not stretching that much at all. It's not that much to stretch. You just stretch it to lay flat, and it takes a little bit of manipulation to pull the neck hole up to match the neckband, and you can use this finger to hold it if you want to, and just make sure it doesn't twist. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I go to this point, remove my needle, and do the same thing. You just keep repeating it until you go back around to where you started. And so I'm gonna pull this neck opening up to my raw edge neckband. Just make sure that it's all raw edges together. Next point. Make sure they're raw edges too. Alright, last one here. go over the spot that I started and pull it abruptly like that. And then if you have, which you could cut a longer tail than that. I typically don't because I don't have my nitpicker yet, but you can buy a nitpicker, and pretty much what you do then is you leave this tail a little bit longer than what I did. And then you would go through here, grab your seam and pull it through, and it would pull your tail in here and secure it. If you don't have that, you can, if you have a sewing machine, you can zigzag stitch over this. Or what I like to do is I like to pull these threads a little bit, and then I pull the looper threads here, and it kind of knocks it off here. And you could tell if it's secure by pulling it some more. And then I snip, don't snip the knot off, but that will secure your seam for a long time. Okay, so then you flip it out and you see our handy dandy neckband. As soon as I snip this little weird piece of string that somehow made it in there. All right, so then as you can see, there is the neckband, and you can top stitch that down, or if you just want to keep it like that, that's fine. Top stitching is on your sewing machine, or if you have a cover stitch, you can top stitch this down. A cover stitch would have actually, I think, done the neckband onto and top stitch at the same time, which would be awesome. But if you have a sewing machine, you can do a double needle up there if you want to, or a straight stitch, a longer straight stitch to give it enough stretch. But I'm not gonna do that because it's a pretty good seam. The back. All right, now we're gonna move on to the sleeves. And like I said, we've already folded our sleeves right sides together, and we're gonna do a seam here with our serger. You can zigzag if you want to. Just remember to close. You have to back stitch if you're doing a sewing machine stitch, a zigzag. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and put this side first. And the reason I do that is because I like to go ahead and get started just until the needle is in the fabric, and then I lift it up so that the needle is out of the fabric. I lift my foot and I pull this thread tight, so like I unbunch it from there, and then I'll pull it underneath my knife here, not too tight because it'll make that bunchy. So I pull it underneath the knife so it gets cut off. And I'll show you why I do that here. That one is kind of not the coolest, but it finishes that edge there for you. So when we flip it out, this is already finished and it won't come unraveled. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so I like to go ahead and snip this point here. I flip my seam out and I like to go ahead and snip this point here because you guessed it, we're kind of quartering, or kind of, it's the same concept of quartering, but I just used the seam in the top part here. Same thing with this other one, right sides together. Starting with the folded hem side. Put it under your knife, drop it, and get started on the seam. Just enough to go into the fabric, open up your foot, pull the thread so that it doesn't bunch up right there, because it typically gets bunched up right at the beginning. Okay, and then you're gonna pull it underneath your knife. All right, so that one was better. It finished that seam off for me, so I don't have to worry about that seam ever coming unraveled. Okay, so I folded that out, and again, I'm gonna snip this top point here. Tiny little snip, tiny little snip. All right, so we're gonna add the sleeves. For the sleeves, I do actually like to fold or turn the garment inside out and put the sleeves from that way. That's just what I like to do. I used to sew sleeves with this garment differently, but I've learned that the inset sleeves, which is this style, they look a lot cleaner. They just do. That's just my opinion. So the sleeve is right side out, the garment is inside out, or wrong side out. So what I'm gonna do is, here is the neck hole, here is a shoulder seam. My hand is going through the shoulder seam, and I am going to match up the right side out sleeve snip point to this shoulder seam, and I'm going to put it in the hole like this. I'm going to pull the sleeve through the hole. I'm going to match up this point here. All right, so as you can see, that's the sleeve kind of coming through the hole. So the sleeve is facing this way, so that when I flip it out, the seam's going to be on the outside of the garment, which is not the outside, but the outside of the inside. Get what I'm saying? Okay. So then I'm going to match up the seam of the sleeve to the seam, the side seam of the garment, and I will just pin that there. All right. So then this is what that's going to look like. That is the inside of the sleeve. That is the actual that is the inside of the sleeve. It's the wrong side of the sleeve. This is the right side, and so right sides together of the sleeve, and I'm just going to sew around this part here. I like to start right here. It's just easier for me. I like to start, this is the seam, the side seam and sleeve seam here. I like to start right there. Doesn't really matter where you start. Just find a place that you're comfortable with. Remember about your needles or your pins. Make sure you're not sewing over those. Alright, so you're going to sew around and make sure that the raw edges are staying together. Don't overstretch. Just enough to make sure your raw edges are together. There's no need to stretch this because it fits perfectly if you did it right. Okay, just make sure your raw edges are matching up. And all the way around. Alright, last one here. Again, I just pull my tails here, or pull my tail, and I pull, and don't pull too tight because you can rip your fabric. But I pull and it knots, and then I just cut it off there, and you can make sure you can test the seam out, the knot out, and it works. So that is knotted there. All right, so then when you poke that out, because this is the inside of the garment, that is the seam there. As you can see, that's the inside of the sleeve. So we're gonna do the same thing with the other side. I'm gonna do it a little bit faster because I just explained how to do it there. If you guys ever need to hit pause and rewind to learn something, go ahead and do that. Who's stopping you? All right, so right side out, garment inside out, into the sleeve, hold on, pull in, match up, hold it around, and do these. Just go to the sleeve seam, do the side seam. It's again here, we're almost done. We'll do the sleeves together. That's turn around, you're always getting around, turn the ball, slowly the flap, draw together, move your hands. You can always do, instead of outward figure too, secure seams in a better way, but it's still in, so what I do, I pull the string and not it. Just do longer strands, we're going to do strands. I pull it up, and then I just close to the edge here, pull the seam, pull the thread, and it doesn't come out more than you already snipped. That's where it's so you pull that out, and here's the inside of the sleeve. So here is the outside of the garment now. So the top's pretty much done. Like I said, if you want to top stitch the neckband, you can. It's not necessary. It's more of gives it more of a polished look. It's not necessarily necessary for function. It's just more of an optional decorative type thing. So that's the back, and then we're gonna add our cuffs. So we've got our cuffs already folded like I showed you earlier in the very beginning of this video. You're going to serge your raw edges. So here's the folded edge. We folded it. Remember, we folded the fabric this way, and then we folded the fabric this way, and this is what we're left with. So we're going to serge this. Again, like we just did the neckband earlier, we're going to start on the folded edge because we don't want it to be uneven. Even though it kind of does give a little uneven appearance, it's not that too uneven to make that big of a difference. So if that bothers you, do it the way the pattern calls for, and you'll be just fine. This is just a quick way to do it for me because it makes it easier for me to add the cuffs. It's just an easier way, in my opinion, to do it. So here we go. Whatever. Just pull it out. All right, pull it. Here we go again. All right. So now I think I pushed this too far away. Where'd you go? Okay, so here, you're gonna snip this piece here. This is still right side, or wrong side out. So we're gonna snip here and here. The two little end pieces here, that's what you're gonna snip. So this is the serge side, which again, you can zigzag stitch, no problem. Here, we're gonna snip that. Same thing on this side, snip those little two pieces here, boop, boop. All right, then you're gonna fold your cuff out. And again, that's what I mean by it might be a little tiny bit uneven, but if you're super OCD and that bugs you, you can do it like the pattern calls. That's totally okay. But that's just easy to do it because it knocks out a step. I don't have to worry about the fabric shifting when I'm sewing a neckband or cuff on. Okay, so then you're gonna match up your little points that you snipped. Make sure your raw edges are together on your cuff. All right, so then we're gonna go down here to the bottom of the romper and add our cuffs. Here you will decide if you want the seam of the cuff to be on the inside seam, the outside seam, if you want the cuff to be in the back. Whatever you do, just make sure you either quarter these or it's probably going to be beneficial if you're a beginner to quarter it, which is just like we did the neckband. You just make 4 equal points, so you can use your side seams here, the seam and the seam as a point, and you can make a point in the front and the back. I'm just going to do 2 just because it's easy. I've done this before, but you can absolutely do 4 if you have trouble, stretching evenly, because the cuff, as you can see, is smaller than the opening. So that's what I mean by that. It's a little bit smaller than the opening. So you're gonna have to stretch this cuff to fit onto here. So it's gonna require you to do some stretching to fit. So quartering is your best friend when it comes to stretching properly. All right, so I'm gonna do 2 pins here. Like I said though, I like to put my cuffs on the inside, but it doesn't really matter where you put it. Just, make it even for both. If you're gonna do insides for both. All right, so I am putting the cuff, the garment is right side out. I am putting the cuff on the outside of the garment. And I am matching up my seams here. And I'm going to pin right here. And I am going to pin over here where that point is that I snipped. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other side, but that's what it looks like when it's done. And so as you can see, when I don't stretch, that's the actual opening. And when I do stretch, the cuff actually fits the opening. So you're not going to stretch too much. All right, so then there's that one. My raw edges are together. Put it underneath my knife. Make sure it doesn't move. And I'm gonna go ahead and get started a little bit on the seam, just so that when I grab this point here, it doesn't pull out of the machine. So I'm gonna go ahead and remember, like I said, you're just gonna pull the cuff just tight enough to lay flat. That's all you need. You don't need to overstretch it. So to get to your point here, remove your pin, and you're just sewing in a circle here. Slow and steady is also going to be your best friend, especially if you're a beginner. The smaller cuff size you do, the harder this is going to be. Just because it's a smaller size. I don't know where this string came from, but oh well. All right, so that's the part we did, and you're gonna go ahead and pull your 2 strings that are tight here. That one didn't pull tight enough. All right, I'm gonna snip those, pull the seam, make sure no more strings come out. We're good to go there, and so that's your cuff you add on here. So there is the cuff, matched up perfectly. Seam, seam, and that's how you add the cuff. So we're gonna do this other one really quick, and we'll be done. final romper here. That's how it looks. Make sure it's all. That's how it looks when it's done. And again, your kid will just step into the neck hole to put it on, step in, step off. It's really simple. A lot of people say, you know, what about diaper changes and whatnot? It slips off super easy. Again, if you are using a fabric that is not good recovery, you can put elastic in the neckband. The instructions show you how to do that. But this is just a really simple, very cute romper. Super, super stylish, super hip, girl or boy, depending on what fabric you use, of course. This could really be either, to be honest, because pink's in now. But super cute. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe because we put out a new video every Tuesday. Check out our memberships. We have a video going over what our memberships entail. Again, if you want to join our group, we have now closed it to the public and you have to be a member to be in our group. So check that out. Check our memberships out. If you like this video, you know, like it, give us a thumbs up. Again, the pattern link will be in the description below. There's an arrow. And we hope you like this video. Make sure you subscribe and we'll see you next Tuesday.